Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video we're going to be going through the idea of the $70 price tag for the new premium, which is coming in at rank 7, the A6E. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because first of all I feel like it's going to be a hot button topic going forward, just like it was when the rank 5 premiums came out at $60 and also other premiums came out at what was deemed overpriced. The one thing I do want to make clear before we get this going through, my opinion is, when it comes to this pack, is it is too expensive for me. Even though I do have the money to buy it, there is no reason for me to, because I can just request it from Gaijin. So anything on the, I can't valuate prices of things because they technically for me don't have value in that way because I don't have to buy it ever. That is the same for all CCs that are at my level, so therefore listening to opinions on these things are going to be all over the place. If I wasn't a CC and I couldn't get it for free, I still also wouldn't buy it because I prefer to grind through the tech trees as they go. And therefore, I don't really need premiums to do that unless they offer something unique or they're an event vehicle. So in the past, when I wasn't part of the Gaijin partnership program, I didn't buy really any premiums. I just bought premium time and that was basically it. And also certain premiums to get access to trees early, usually the cheaper ones, such as the T26 to get into CBT, and also stuff like the French monoplane to be able to get access to the aviation part. So yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on it. It isn't worth it to me, but that's because of several other factors. The other thing I also want to stress is at the end of the day, all of this stuff is just a value judgment. And because it's a value judgment, it's going to be different for each person who has their opinion on it. There are going to be some people who don't think it's worth it. There are going to be others that do think it's worth it. At the end of the day, it is subjective. And it is a personal choice whether people want to buy this or not. I never like the idea of people telling others what to do with their money, especially if they don't know them and they don't know their financial situation. If you imagine if you're talking to a millionaire and you're like, hey, you shouldn't buy this $70 thing because it's too expensive. They're not going to care. But if you're talking to somebody who's on the verge of homelessness and they have an issue with, I don't know, gambling or something like that, and you're telling them to not buy it, then the issue is you don't know on the other side of the screen what life situation the person is on the other side, so you can only do it from your personal point of view. This is why trying to boycott things can only be done from a personal level, and they cannot be done by a collective movement, because people are going to buy it anyway, and you have no right to tell other people how to spend their money and how to live their lives. Now that we're past that, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's get into all the different points. Just as a point before we get into it, two pieces of information. The first one is the Scottish flag is available in War Thunder right now from the 30th of November to the 2nd of December. So make sure to pick it up. Basically, it's to celebrate St. Andrew's Day for Scotland. So, you know, it's 200 GE in the game. You can find it in the World Flag section. So make sure to pick that one up. The other piece of information is the fact that none of the current rank 6 premiums will move. So therefore, there will be new premiums that come in, which will be the new rank 7 ones. So it's not going to be like how they did ground with a lot of the rank 5s moving to rank 6. Instead, they are just bringing in new stuff. The other thing to also note is I am speaking from a Canadian/American perspective on this when it comes to monetary stuff. There are a bunch of other places where obviously other factors will be involved, such as in certain South American countries when it comes to the amount of taxes that you have to pay on purchases when it comes to electronics or video games in general, or other areas of the world where maybe the price difference may be a little bit all over the place. So I'm just specifically speaking from this point of view because that's the stuff that I know, and also at the same time that's the price tag which is being talked about, the $70 one, because it's mainly being talked about on Reddit, and Reddit is a massively the massive proportion of Reddit in general is American, over 60% of it in general. So that's what is usually discussed in, and that's where I'm going to discuss it. If you have a look at a nation like Britain, for example, Britain has a very large wealth gap between percentages of its population, meaning that there is a very large percentage of the population in especially the UK, which is on very low wages, and then you have a very small amount of high earners. So it's over 50% of people are on very low salaries in the UK. There is a massive wealth disparity between many people. So stuff like this that we're going to talk about, as I said, will not fit everybody, and that's just the nature of economics and how the world works. So first off, we're going to talk about target demographics, because I feel like there is this belief that the target demographic for War Thunder is a lot younger than it actually is. And this is mainly down to a few factors that we'll get into. The first thing I want to bring up is a presentation that Anton Yudintsev did, who is the CEO of Gadget. He did this a few years ago, and basically it was talking about the future of what is known as action MMOs. War Thunder is in this bracket, even though it's a very wide bracket. Started off talking about stuff like 2008 with things like Crossfire and Combat Arms, going into 2009s with Heroes of New Earth and League of Legends, obviously then Dota a little bit later on, 2010 saw World of Tanks, 2012 with War Thunder and Warface, and then many others going forward. And he's basically trying to paint a picture of how this stuff is going to progress going forward. Is it worth investing in VR technology? Is it worth staying with what everybody knows, and so on? And one of the slides, which is on the screen right now that you can see, is talking about demographic shifts. Obviously, when people started this genre, they were a little bit younger. Maybe they were in their early 20s, maybe they were around that in 2008. But now it's 2016, now those people are around 30. And because of the fact that they've changed in age and their life changes with that, means that they have different experiences. So generally, younger people have more time to play video games. So a person in 2008, for example, who is 20, would have on average 2.5 hours a day to play video games. They also like to generally play in groups. They like to play with people. In 2016, though, that same person is around about 30. And they now only have maybe an hour or maybe only 30 minutes a day to be able to play video games. Plus also at the same time they prefer to play solo because of this, and also because they don't have as much time to create kind of communities around them or for them, right? So as you get older, usually you have less time on your hands because you have more things to worry about, and also at the same time you generally prefer to play solo. This also is a trend when it comes to the internet in general. If you have a look at a lot of the people who comment when it comes to YouTube or Reddit or anywhere, they're usually of a younger demographic or people who have too much time on their hands. And therefore, what ends up happening is they generally will kind of skew the belief of the vast majority of the player base being younger than it actually is. So the actual age of the vast majority of War Thunder players is going to be averaged out probably mid-30s, maybe even late 30s at this point, just because the game's been around for 10 years, and a lot of those people who started playing earlier on are now older, and then also at the same time, because the people who started it who were in that generation of 30 to 40 are now 50 and 60, so everything trends upwards. So even with all the new people coming in who are younger, there is still the massive majority of the player base which is older than you may think. And this is one of the things that happens constantly when it comes to these online discourse. People talk about it from a opinion of like a 18-year-old or a high school student or a university student or somebody who's like trying to get out into the world, because they're usually the ones who have more time and therefore they talk about these things. But that is not the standard person who is playing. That is not the standard person who is spending money on the game. So it skews it a lot. And generally, when it comes to people or students, like if you're on like minimum wage or if you are a student, then I feel like, at least from my point of view, priorities should be shifted. Instead of being worried about how much something in a video game costs, it might be worth worrying about improving your specific situation you're in before you even get into those conversations. The other thing I want to comment on is the price of video games in general, because I see a lot of people doing a comparison about how you can either get a $70 premium vehicle or you can buy a video game at $70. Most of the time nowadays, if you actually want a complete video game, you are not buying it for $70. For me specifically, if I look at the new Call of Duty, it is $130 for the edition, which is actually useful. And then if I want to buy everything on it, it is $340. Canadian, by the way. But I thought I would also drop in an article here. It's basically, are video games really more expensive? And it's kind of an interesting one because video games have not followed the same trends as a lot of other places. Generally, video games, even though they have got more expensive over time, for example, the average sale price for the Atari 2600 for a video game was $40, and nowadays for a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X game, it is $70. If you actually compare it to its relative price, so taking in conversation the actual inflation of the time, they're actually cheaper than they were before. Because what happened in the 70s was the Atari games were actually massively overvalued compared to the games of today. So even though things have increased in price because of the rate of inflation and because of the rate of everything else, video games have technically got cheaper. And this is another point we'll bring up when it comes to the $70 price tag as well. Another narrative that was also brought up that I saw was the fact that each rank, basically the price increases in increments of 10. This is wrong. I don't know why or when this got spread, but it's not true. Just because it's rank 7 doesn't mean it should be $70. Just because it's rank 6 doesn't mean it should be $60. And to kind of show this, I have a web archive of a lot of the vehicles, which some of them eventually became rank 6 premiums, but weren't at the time when they were released. The Leopard L44, for example, was a rank 5 premium. So was the XM1, the T55AM, and also some other ones which were pushed up. These were all $60 premiums, which were rank 5s at the time of their release. They only became rank 6s later on when rank 7 was introduced into the game. So you could buy rank 5s premiums for $60. When these were actually released, there was a big hoo-ha around them being too expensive as well. And guess what? People still bought them, and now they are all over the game, just like pretty much all of the other premiums which are going around. And one of the most important points to all of this is, of course, inflation. And I know inflation is one of those things that people generally don't want to discuss because it can be kind of confusing, and also the fact that there is an element of price gouging, especially over the last year when it comes to certain products. But when it comes to this specific one, let's have a chat about it. I just showed you a thing from 2018 where we had rank 5 premiums at $60. Right? Now, if you actually have a look and take into account inflation, in 2022, $60 from 2018 is actually equal to $71.17. So if you are okay with the prices of the rank 5s premiums being $60, then you should also be okay with these prices for something which is rank 7. So technically, if you compare the price of this to the price of the previous machine, you are actually getting more value for this machine compared to previous years. But as I said, people don't like to talk about inflation. They prefer to just talk about a random number on a page. The thing about it is we've literally had a cumulative price change of 18.62% in 4 years, which is nuts, and most of it actually being driven by this year, which has had an inflation of 7.75%. So it is just absolutely crazy what's been going on. So technically, this price, this rank 7 vehicle, is the exact same price, actually a little bit cheaper than the rank 5 premium from 2 years ago. Just as another quick thing, for euros, if you actually have a look at the inflation rate of it, it's a cumulative price range of 15.33%, so less than USD, but still 60 euros in 2018, which was the price of the rank 5 premium pack, is now 69 euros 20. So pretty similar. Once again, a little bit higher, the cost of the product, but by 80 cents. Not really that far off if you look at it. Another thing to also note at this point in the video, if you want to see any of this stuff yourself, I'll just stick all of the links in the description so you can have a look. Now, the thing about inflation being so high is it's not just cost of product that increases. What also increases is wages generally, specifically freelance work. And if you know anything about War Thunder's way that they kind of create stuff, a lot of stuff is freelance, or a lot of stuff is using independent creators, whether it's, designers or whether it's builders, and then bringing them together with the core development team. So that's basically how a lot of game development for these companies works nowadays. It's how, to be honest, a lot of industries work nowadays. My industry works like it. And it means that there's a lot more flexibility, and also you don't necessarily have to pay people stuff like insurance, which is obviously better for the company and worse for the individual. Hopefully that improves. But the main thing is it isn't just prices increasing willy-dilly. Sometimes it is that, and yes, companies do take advantage of people in general, which is not very fun. But also there are usually legitimate reasons for this. And if you have a look at, as I said, the inflation from 2018 to just 2022, what you'll find is with the prices have basically stayed up with inflation, just how it is. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about average wages. And I know people don't want to talk about average wages, and that's completely fine because they can be incredibly skewed, especially if you have a very large amount of the population that makes no money and a very small amount of the population that makes a ton of money, e.g. Britain. But when it comes to Canada, I think it is worth having a look at, just kind of give you a barometer of where I'm talking about. As I talked about, it's much easier to find the average wage in Canada because most of this stuff is public, whereas in the US, depending on where you look at, it's all over the place, so it's not as easy. So in Canada, at this moment, males' average hourly earnings in 2020, so 2 years ago, so before we had the big inflation boom of 2022 and also 2021, the average hourly earning was $32.47. For females, it was $28.90. So overall, collectively, it's probably around $30 if you add everybody up. So what this means is in order to earn the $70 pack, you have to evaluate how much you are worth on an average. So that's 2.5 hours worth of work. So 2.5 hours of work in Canada, or maybe 3 hours, depending on how the ratio of USD to CAD is doing at the time, 3 or 4 hours at most. So half a day's worth of work is what would get you this premium. So that's the economy over here right now and how everything works. So if you look at it from just that perspective, it's actually not that bad. But also at the same time, stuff like premium time, which is way more worth it, costs you about an hour and a half worth of work on average at average hourly earnings. But as I said, it's averages. People don't like averages, so you can disregard this point if you want to. One of the things to also mention is the affiliate program revenue share. Now, this doesn't give us a complete look into how much certain things cost, but it gives you an overall idea of how much money is actually moving around when it comes to Gaijin and an individual part of their products. So if you have a look at the wiki for War Thunder, you will find the affiliate program revenue share kind of post, and it talks about how much stuff will be costed for. So it said, how will the award be calculated? When choosing to use user-generated content, the company will calculate the award in 3 ways. A fixed fee in the amount between 6,000 USD to 10,000 USD for 3D models of aircraft, tanks, or ships. The value will be determined by the company's development team depending on the model's complexity, and a fixed fee in the amounts between 1,500 USD and $8,000 USD for 3D models of cockpits. The value will also be determined by the company's development team depending on complexity. And then number 3 is payment through a share revenue for a period of 6 months from the date of acceptance. So all of these things kind of show how much worth even just one individual thing is. So if you think about, let's just say the maximum amount, let's say you have 50 vehicles which are brought in an update, and let's just say that each vehicle is $10,000 and they're all planes, so you have $8,000 cockpits. So each vehicle is $18,000 USD, times that by 50, and you can understand how expensive even just one update can be. Not just premiums, by the way, that's every single vehicle. And that's also on the upper echelon end, but just to give you an idea, right? So there is a lot of money being thrown around when it comes to this stuff, just to give you a general example. If you want to read more about those, or you're interested in producing stuff for War Thunder, I'll leave a link in the description. The other thing that also has to be taken into account when it comes to War Thunder is there are many other ways of actually being able to get Gaijin coin, or to also get some kind of value to buy these things. This is something that a lot of other companies do not actually offer. For PC, you have the Gaijin market, for example, which can be used to be able to get Gaijin coin, which you can use on the store, meaning that the value of certain things may change based on how the market's doing, and also how well you as an individual can do. Another thing you can do is, well, I don't know if you can do it anymore, but what you used to be able to do is you could collect Bing points, and you could collect Bing points and then transfer them into gift cards and then use them on the Gaijin store. You could actually do it with Subway gift cards, funnily enough. This was something that was also available. So all you had to do is literally just use Bing instead of other stuff, collect points, and there you go. Free money for Gaijin store. And yeah, that was also available. So the actual raw value of the money can be kind of supplemented by other ways of doing things, which is something that Gaijin offers that many other companies don't. One of the things that does actually kind of annoy me, and this happens every time we have new prices for things, is the comparison to DCS. If you don't know what DCS is called Digital Combat Simulator. It is a simulator, it is not a game. I've watched many interviews from the... He classes himself as the part-time CEO of the company. He's a part-time CEO, full-time psychologist. And he actually talks about what DCS is and what he wants it to be. And it is very interesting listening to him. He's done a bunch of different interviews and podcasts and stuff on YouTube talking about his beliefs and his ideas. But the thing is, the actual goal of DCS is completely different compared to War Thunder, and therefore the value of the different packs is completely different based on what you get out of them. In DCS, if you buy a vehicle, which by the way, in my regional prices right now, the top vehicles at the moment in DCS, which would be the ones to compare to War Thunder, are more expensive than $70. So like stuff like the FA-18C, for example, or the F-14AB, they are $102 for me. So that's how that goes. So they're still more expensive than what I would pay for this one. The other thing is, as well, if you buy these modules, or DLC, which is what they actually are, that would mean you only get that vehicle. And yes, it's very high quality, and yes, you know, you can click things in the cockpit, how cool. But the other thing is, what you also get is a very unstable game that doesn't run very well, and many different combat scenarios which are supposed to be as realistic as possible, therefore pretty boring from a subjective point of view. The other thing to also note is you are buying a premium in War Thunder not just to play that vehicle. It is also to research hundreds, if not thousands, of other vehicles with it. When you buy something like the J6 at the end of the day, what you are getting is a vehicle which can efficiently research the whole of the American aviation tree, which is a vast amount of vehicles which you can play. This is not a good comparison when it comes to DCS. One of the things that, the A6E, not the J6E, but one of the things that needs to stop happening is these comparisons to DCS. DCS is a niche game. It is one which will never hit the heights of War Thunder, because War Thunder, or Gaijin, when War Thunder was being created, looked at stuff like combat simulators because that's what they made before they made War Thunder, and went, how do we improve this and how do we make the system better? They created and patented the mouse control system that War Thunder runs on, and now War Thunder is easily 100 times, if not bigger, than DCS in players, content, and updates, and everything. It is a terrible comparison. Please, for the love of Christ, stop making it. One of the comparisons I really enjoy doing is to World of Tanks, because if you don't know about World of Tanks is one of the most pay-to-win free-to-play games out there, which has one of the closest types of business models to War Thunder. The major difference between the way that World of Tanks works and also War Thunder works is the way that research works in the game, because obviously you have extra elements to it in World of Tanks when it comes to the crew XP and being able to move the crew around because they are more unique to that vehicle itself. And then also at the same time, you have this idea of free XP, which is similar to convertible research that you have in War Thunder. And so if we have a look on the store for World of Tanks, right now, they have a Tier 8 vehicle, which for 3 days is actually on a discount compared to what it usually is. And if you just want to buy the vehicle itself with nothing extra on it, it will cost you $50 for this Tier 8 vehicle, which is completely fine, right? So Tier 8, remember, they have 10 tiers in World of Tanks. So Tier 8 would be the equivalent to basically like a Tier 7 or a Tier 6. So $50 straight out just for the vehicle. If you want the Deluxe package, which gives you a bunch of gold, so 7,500 gold, and also gives you some 300% free crew XP and mission XP as well, that will set you back $85. So this one is closer to what the pre-order actually gives you for War Thunder, so this is the comparable one. So $85 instead of $70, $15 more for a vehicle which won't be able to efficiently research as much as the A6. Then you have the Supreme package, just if you want to be spat in your face even more. It's $107. By the way, discounted. Remember, this thing should be $150. But they put the discount there to make you think you're actually getting a discount, but you're actually not. And that gives you 10,000 gold and a bunch of other experience offerings as well. So in order to get what would be classed as some extra premium content, you need to pay $50 extra. So yeah, if you want to see a game which really takes the piss when it comes to these things, you should have a look at the wargaming setups. And I'm not even going to get into some of the other things, such as the fact that you can use premium currencies to enhance your vehicles in the form of consumables. It's a lot better than it used to be in World of Tanks, but it's still kind of rough. And also, guess what? The loot boxes are back. Thank Christ War Thunder doesn't do that in the same way that World of Tanks does, and also World of Warships, and also Armored Warfare. Do you want to hear another great thing? In Armored Warfare, for actual vehicles, you have to buy loot boxes to see if you can actually get the vehicle. And this is vehicles which are on their actual shop. So you can't specifically all the time buy vehicles just for a standard gold price. You have to buy loot boxes to hope that you get the vehicle. How ridiculous is that, man? When it comes to these large companies, they have a ton of information on you. They have pretty much all the information on you, more information that you even could think about. And this is coming from a video that I watched from, once again, tying in the World of Tanks stuff. This was from a guy called Maxim Mashkov, who did a presentation 2 years ago, and I'll leave the link in the description of the video. He's head of live operations for Wargaming, and he mainly works in North America, and he is the guy who collects information on you, the player, to be able to make decisions on when to try and keep you playing, and also how much money you're going to spend, when to hit you with certain offers, and when to basically milk you for money and milk you for everything that you're worth. That's what these people do, right? And the simple fact is, they are insanely good at their jobs. which is why over the last few years we've seen a massive explosion of certain different types of mechanics which are based around the monetary idea, right? And a lot of them are very successful, and people just accept them now as the normal. We have a lot of paid games which have a ton of free-to-play mechanics in them. If you watch this presentation, he actually talks about daily, just from the North American player base of wargaming, mainly World of Tanks. He collects 5 terabytes worth of data on that just specific region, all based around working out what the best sales practices are and what the best general practices are trying to introduce the game to new people. It's an incredibly important job from the business point of view, but also at the same time, these are the type of people that you have to be wary of when it comes to actual life and spending money, because they are absolutely vicious and predatory, because that is their job. So if you think that they don't understand spending habits, or they're just putting out this price for a whim, nope. All of this stuff is very calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how far to push these things, and they will just keep going with it. So even if you personally are not happy with the price tag, they have worked out mathematically what is correct to do and what they're going to push forward with, and how much they are, or how they're going to maximize the amount of money that they're going to get from this. That's just how it goes. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I hope this video has given you at least some thoughts, some context, and some ideas to have a look at some different things and some different thoughts within it. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them below. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.